And here we are. Hey guys, welcome back. My location has changed. I am actually in Illinois for the first time ever. So Corsan and I plan to see each other in person after so long, so it should be good. Last two places are Bonchon. I don't know if we're going to continue that tradition, but best Korean fried chicken place I've ever been to. So that strip, I was just at that strip yesterday. There's a new place called like a 9 bar like Taiwan place is right next to the supermarket. They got some pretty good like I think I had bao, and then I had like the Taiwan popcorn chicken. That was really good. And then I also had like fried chicken. My other friend, he had eel. I didn't like the eel so much. Like it was good, don't get me wrong, but I think the sauce made it better than what it was. So that area that we go to is like usually it's coming up. There's a lot of good places around there.
Yeah. It's like the best place or best thing about the area is like there's a lot of good food, I guess. Outside of that, it's like, okay, I guess you go to the Fox Valley Mall if you want to hang out somewhere, but like
you're totally outing us with our location right now. But no, I think the beautiful spot is like there's just so many restaurants like in our town. That's really, really good. Like you can never get I don't think you could try out all the restaurants in a year. Like between like the neighboring towns, like the downtown area, and like the new blocks that are coming up nearby. Like it's kind of crazy. Like I can't keep up. Every time I come back, there's something new that shows up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hometown, back at it. We're gonna talk about the hometown team. So NFC North in today. Bears are obviously gonna go 16-0 in the division. Even all the teams that made the playoffs in this division. So that'll happen. But a lot of exciting things to talk about. At one point, this division, like everybody was 4-2 or better, like for the first 6 weeks of the season. Then came the Hail Mary, and then like the Bears just mentally like cursed themselves out of it for the next 10 games. But then you got weirdness happening, like the Packers losing all their division games except for a blocked field goal the first time they played the Bears. And the time else, they had a really, really good team. Then Minnesota and like the Lions were duking it out for week 18 for the 1 seed. And then all of a sudden, Minnesota's out after the first round. So a lot to dissect, a lot of transition with these teams. But how do you kind of parse this division as you're looking at it from the outside?
Yeah, I still like somewhat similarly to last year's predictions. I think this will be a competitive division. Like I don't have in my mind, I think certain teams can struggle just with like a lot of changes happening within their own individual teams. But overall, like I don't see these teams have any like glaring weaknesses or like specific issues that I'm like overly concerned about. I mean, there's like some question marks, like with some of the teams with their quarterback play. Maybe some players lost a couple of the key pieces on offense or defense, but like overall, I think these teams either were good enough already, had good acquisitions during the offseason, or have been like building towards success to the point where I'm like, from my own predictions here, I think I have the worst team here as they're low on like the bottom side of their win prediction is like a 7-win as the worst kind of season. And so it's like at worst, the worst team is winning 7 games, which I think is a competitive division.
Yeah. For the last team in the division, absolutely. Especially when you're talking about like teams like the Saints and the Titans out there that people are perceiving they're not going to do really well. That's really, really good. I'm assuming you're talking about the Bears, just given where the other teams they're talking finished last year. You look at their schedule; they start out like at home against Minnesota and then Detroit, but then you're looking towards like week 3 to like 7. That's a favorable stretch with the bye week kind of early. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. If they go 500 or slightly better than 500. I think that's a good season because they got a lot of when you're considering the teams in their division, like how they performed last year, and then we got like the Commanders, Ravens, Eagles, 49ers, outside of that, like that is a murderer's row of teams, and they're just like random. They're just random, like you, except for like Baltimore and Cincy back to back on the road too. That is not going to be an easy stretch of their schedule. But I think when I look at a lot of teams in there, like I think they can compete with Green Bay. I think they can compete with Minnesota because I think the actual roster on the team is so much upgraded for the offseason champs two times in a row. By the way, I should say, like they had the personnel to do it. I don't think it was ever a question of personnel. I think for me last year going into it, like forget the coach. I like for the coaching, they coached themselves out of it, and that was bad but brutal. But last year, I knew going in they had a weakness in the offensive line and defensive line. It's like who else besides Sweat? Who else besides like Darnell Wright? You couldn't really answer those questions. Now you have those answers and attempts at answers, and I'm like, okay, you finally have a complete team, so to speak, where you just have one or two weaknesses. Let's see what this looks like with perceived competent coaching. But I think there is a transition period that's going to happen here. So I would probably say the same. I like just being realistic. I would probably say 7 to 9 wins is where I see this Bears team going. But that doesn't necessarily concern me, given that the first and foremost important thing is develop consistency on both sides of the ball.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, just the O-line acquisitions alone, I think, propelled this team a lot further than what they had going on last season. And then I think moving on from Keenan Allen will, I think, help the offense more as well than I think, like, what the overall loss of Keenan Allen represents maybe for some people on this team. Allen didn't play, I think, quite to expectations people had for the Bears last season, whether that be regression or just like overall effort. He didn't play, I think, to what people expected to be the trio of receivers that was DJ Moore, Romeo Odunze, and Keenan Allen. I think Odunze going into year 2, being like basically being the guy at the number 2 receiver on this team, will be a huge boost to the offense comparative to like what we saw last season. And then obviously I'm a huge fan of them bringing in Ben Johnson. I think more than anything, I think you could honestly keep the team what it was last year and incorporate Ben Johnson, and they're closer to a 500 record. That's just my overall belief in his offensive scheming. And so that's what I really like. I'm just really excited for Odunze this upcoming season. And then, you're hoping, I mean, Drew Dahlman, obviously probably the biggest signing of the offseason. Joe Thuney was a good move. Jonah Jackson, you're hoping that he comes back and plays like he did in Detroit and not quite like he did with the Rams. But then, it's with the Detroit scheme that they're bringing in for the offense now. So you're like, wait, is he going to be able to bounce back because he's coming back to that Detroit style offense with Johnson, and then defense, it'll be interesting to see how they do. I mean, they didn't really lose all too much over the course of the offseason. Here I have them losing. They lost Gerald Everett, which is like, okay, whatever. DeMarcus Walker, which I'd say is probably one of the bigger losses. And then Keenan Allen, which is kind of like, just he didn't mesh with the team. And then Tevin Jenkins, which I say he was solid when he was healthy. But obviously, you bring in 3 other offensive linemen. It's not like that's a glaring hole that you have on the team. So like, you don't really lose all too much. You add a lot of solid pieces that I'm a fan of, both with free agencies and rookies, and then I'm excited for some of the second-year guys.
Good summation of the roster. I think the big thing is Jack Sanborn. He moved to Dallas from Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
And you're replacing a rookie from that. That's probably the only concern I have. I thought they did a phenomenal job. I slightly disagree with you with the Ben Johnson take, only because I think with that O-line last season, I don't think it would have mattered who was coaching them. I think the fact that they went in with a bad O-line and a rookie quarterback to start the season was going to spell disaster no matter what, and it was just a matter of when, not if. despite them like absolutely trouncing the Jaguars. Like, I think the biggest like moves in the trenches were where they needed to focus their energy a year ago, and I'm really glad they did that now instead of abandoning it again. So Grady Jarrett, huge fan. Joe Tooney, Drew Dahlman. Those were worth the free agent dollars you spent on them, like plus the trades. Jonah Jackson's a bet, but I think finally getting Ryan Bates, like getting Ozzie, Braxton Jones. Now you're like 7-8 deep on the offensive line, and now I finally feel comfortable with where they're at. Now they can actually develop guys behind them, and I think it'll be great. I'm equally as excited on Rome Odunze as you are, but I am really, really ecstatic about Luther Burden. I think you know this based on how I drafted in Dynasty, but I actually valued him better than Travis Hunter as a pure receiver. I think overall player, I'm not saying overall player like Travis Hunter is worse than Burden. There's no way Burden can play on the defense like that. Not almost nobody can, right? But I think from a dynasty perspective, when you're thinking about offensive opportunity and like how much offensive stats are skewed, I think Burden will have a huge, huge opportunity where he could be the Amon-Ra St. Brown role, but just as a pure receiver and route running and explosiveness. He just has those traits that are just a tad bit more rare. So it literally was like Burden 1A, Travis Hunter 1B in my mind. So I had 2 first-round picks. I had no running backs on my roster. It's a bad situation with my dynasty roster. I traded for Najee Harris, and I had Joe Mixon already on my lineup, but I had no second running backs. So I was like, had to get Quinshon Judkins. Thankfully, I picked up Nick Chubb, who was drafted in free agency because people are like, oh, he's not starting. No point in having him. Joe Mixon is going to be hurt. Najee Harris just got hurt with his eye. Quinshon Judkins is going to get arrested and suspended. And my only running back now is Nick Chubb, who's officially projected 0 points on there. So that was great. I had to spend my second overall pick on Judkins, have a 6th overall pick on Burden, but the reason I didn't pick Travis Hunter after Ashton was gone was because I thought Burden was better, and I had a 6th overall pick on him, and I love the Loveland pick. In some cases, I think he's better than Sam Laporta. And the way the Bears are going to use him, they can use him in 12 personnel. They can use him in the big slot. So he's not like a 1-for-1, like this is the Sam Laporta role. I think he could do some things in the Amon-Ra St. Brown role. And that makes me very, very excited with the way they spent their picks. Kyle Monangai, I think he could easily be the best running back on the roster. Right now, it's not situated that way. It could be Roshan. It could be DeAndre Swift. But I think DeAndre Swift is going to be found out this season, but based on like his inability to get those tough yards in the situation where it counts most. DJ Moore, I know the fantasy community loves him, considers him the alpha. I look at this in the situation, it's like the Bears don't have to hold on to DJ Moore after next year. They're kind of like, let the best players win over here. Like when I look at Moore and like the way he wins, it's kind of in the Deebo Samuel role. And I think you're going to see a lot more like one-on-one matchups being won by a Odunze, and you're not going to be seeing more in those situations. You're going to see more schemed up plays for DJ Moore. And I'm not going to say he's going to be like a wide receiver 30 in this offense. But what I'm saying is don't be surprised if he's outside the top 15. Because I think this is going to be like a ball control, spread it out type offense where they finally have the talent around Caleb Williams, where it's not just DJ Moore above the rest. It's a clear, like, balanced attack. And I think that's what makes me excited most about this team.
Yeah. So for my win predictions, I say like an 8 to 11 win season is possible with this team. And I know it's quite a bit higher than yours, so it feels like almost like I'm a homer about it. But I looked at their schedule, and I was like, they do have tough games throughout the season. Obviously, interdivision games I think will be tough. They face against Philadelphia, Cincinnati, Baltimore. But then I look at the rest of their schedule, and I'm like, they got some like tougher-ish games, but I don't think like the teams that they face are like, leagues ahead of them. And I think there's a couple teams that I feel like are deliberately worse than the Bears, namely the Saints and the Giants. So it's like those two teams. I'm not like overly confident in the Steelers' ability to take away the games from them. I'm not super confident in Cleveland's season this year. Vegas, I'm like they could be good, they could suck. They're an up in the air kind of team. Dallas, they could. I mean, I think Dallas early in the season is more favorable to the Bears potentially because I think a hot Dallas Cowboys towards the end of the season is what might be scarier. So it's like these are games that I think are winnable, and then if they, you can grind it out and beat the Packers again, which would be kind of cool, and then Vikings week 1, I think in some ways favor them as well. Just the fact that like you're getting JJ McCarthy in his first ever pro game, like because if he turns out to be a star, I'd rather face him in week 1 and week 11 than like week 11 and week 18.
I don't know, but I think the Vikings might be the big test right out of the gate on where the Bears are at, because you can argue it's a completely different offense for the Bears too. They're overhauling a completely new offense and going against the Brian Flores defense that looks more comfortable, and we'll talk about that later. That has me a little bit nervous where like I could see them starting out slow. But I think the thing that gives me hope is for all the things that happened in Chicago last season where players were checked out, Tyreek Stevenson taunting the fans before the play started and for the Hail Mary. I was so mad when that happened. The total vitriol against Matt Eberflus and like the total contrast when you hear players talk about Ben Johnson now. Like just the situation that happened last year. It was a very toxic environment. Players were toxic. Coaching was like toxic. They hung out like Caleb Williams to dry, but they gave him no help. And Caleb Williams still finished like a top 6 or like 7 fantasy season towards the back half, and he started really turning it on once Thomas Brown came along. Like to put up those numbers and that kind of situation brings me a lot of hope for like what the offense can become like after the first quarter of the season finishes. And that part gets me really, really excited, along with finally building around him. The thing that's giving me cause to pause is who is going to take up the David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs role in that Lions offense? Because right now, I was hoping they would have a feature back to kind of dissuade that. And I'm not sure if Roshan or Kyle Monungai are going to take the steps needed. I would love it for Kyle because I think Kyle can do everything. But I'm not really confident in putting DeAndre Swift in the like Jahmyr Gibbs role or like David Montgomery role. They're like kind of like a hybrid. That kind of gives me cause to pause, and especially when you look at late in the season where you have, and especially in the Chicago weather, the NFC North weather, you got to be able to run the ball. That's what I think is missing from this team. But I think other than that, they have everything they need.
Yeah. Yeah. But also, I do think that the way the Bears went about going this offseason was in some way a vote of confidence to their belief in DeAndre Swift. Like, I think a lot of people expected the Bears to take within the first like 3 rounds to take one of like, the big name running backs. And the fact that they didn't take a running back until the 7th, didn't really add any running backs in free agency either, is kind of like a mini vote of confidence to like what they think DeAndre Swift can do. Especially like we talk about his stats last season where he had 959 rush yards, averaging 3.8 a carry, 6 touchdowns, which like you obviously isn't the most ideal of numbers. But you also mentioned, the Bears had an atrocious offensive line last season, so now you have a bolstered offensive line, and if all you really need is a running back to hit that like maybe like 1,100 rush yard mark, I feel like within this system that is technically doable for DeAndre Swift, which might be all you want from your running back going into this season, and I don't think would be an unsuccessful season for DeAndre Swift and the Bears, especially if Caleb Williams can take like even like a half step forward. Because I mean, you look at Caleb Williams' stats last year: 3,500 pass yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 picks. It's like if you're getting that to like 3,800 pass yards, he has 25 passing touchdowns, and you could say 6 picks still.
I don't know. Don't stop there. He's going to be the first 4,000-yard passer.
Yeah,
that's gonna happen.
Like even still, like I think that'd be a huge season for the Bears, and if he's putting up those kind of numbers, and Swift is putting up 1,100 rush yards on the season, them being in the playoff race, I think isn't like that far out of the picture.
Yeah, and for me, I consider that a successful season where their trajectory is. Now, obviously, I want them competing deep in the playoffs every single year, being a fan. But I think right now you just got to focus on building it the right way, because you're catching Detroit where it's like they lose both their coordinators and they're like mentally going through it. Minnesota going through that quarterback change. Green Bay, like they got to figure some things out with like how do they get more juice out of their lineup, having barely any stars on their roster. So if there's any moment to capitalize now, this is the season where it comes in, and taking positive steps in that direction is all you can ask for out of the Bears team right now.
What was that?
Taking positive steps is all you can ask for out of the Bears right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, like 8. So I think like 8. I mean, you can maybe bump that down to like a 7 win. Maybe mine's like a 7 to 11 win. But like, I think if like with my overall predictions with Caleb Williams and DeAndre Swift, I think them being a potential 11 win team this season isn't out of the realm of possibility. It'll be a tough 11 win season for them, but I think regardless, we'll see positive growth and positive like just overall direction for the Bears team, which, like you said, is kind of what you're most excited to see, which I think would be fun.
Absolutely. All right. Let's kind of discuss the Green Bay Packers. They're going to go 0-16. I didn't make the playoffs next session. Don't want to talk about them. So, obviously kidding. We're going to look at this from an objective view. Green Bay is kind of in an interesting boat where they didn't have that many stars on their team. Like, I think the biggest stars you could talk about were like Xavier McKinney, Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary, Josh Jacobs. End of story. Like, you don't have a lot. They have a lot of good players, but you don't have like superstars on their team. And like, they were still able to pull out like a 11-win season. Like, I think they went 11-6 last year. That's just insane. But when I look at their schedule, they have a rough stretch to end the season. Like, look at week 12 to 18. You got 5 division games. Baltimore, Denver, sandwiched in between that. Like, that is not an easy close to the schedule. And then to start off the year, you're going against Detroit and the Commanders, both at home. But like then you got Cincy after the bye, and then Philadelphia, like week 10. I don't know, man. That is a rough schedule. Like, that is 8-9 games where you're looking at them and it's like that could be 9 losses, or that could be like 5 losses. You have no idea where to put them along that trajectory. I think they're kind of in this weird state where, like, because they have such an experienced coaching staff, even down to the position coaches, like, they could realistically beat anybody. But it really depends on how the players play week to week. And I don't know, you could say that about any team. But I think when I see your projection, I'm like, I have to give them wide variance too. Like, I don't know how I could see. I would also give them like a 7-10 win season, I think. Like, I think their ceiling's a little bit higher than the Bears right now, just because Jordan Love is more experienced in like Matt LaFleur's system, and Matt LaFleur is like been a head coach longer than Ben Johnson obviously has. And he consistently gets the most out of his rosters, which irks me. But I don't know how you could put the Packers higher than what they did last season, considering that everybody in the divisions got better. They struggled against this division, and their schedule seems a little bit less familiar.
Yeah, it's a tough. Yeah, it's a tough division for them. That's why I have them at a 7-12 win thing. My optimism more or less just comes from how well they were able to play last season. And then this is also like maybe Matthew Golden is the guy. I was pretty high on him going into the draft. He was more or less my Brian Thomas Jr. of this draft, where a lot of people weren't super high on Brian Thomas going into last season. But I was super high on him. I thought he was going to be a superstar. He turned out to be pretty good last season.
He was one of your guys. Like you listed out Golden, I listed out Isaiah Bond, and Isaiah Bond didn't get drafted. So there goes my whole thing.
Yeah, and so I think if Matthew Golden has a similar impact to the Packers as Brian Thomas did to the Jaguars last season in terms of the offensive like pass attack, like I think they can stay competitive in more or less any game that they go into, just because they have a superstar wide receiver. I feel like the curse of the Packers for like the past like 4 years is they've had a lot of receivers that you're like, oh, one of these guys could make the jump to be, the standout guy. And each one of them have had their moments where you're like, oh, it might be, it's Christian Watson. He just had 7 catches, 100 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Like maybe it's his breakup, but he's literally lives on the IR and the PUP list. So it's like, okay, maybe not him. Jaden Reed, maybe he's our guy. He has these crazy games, but he also has the issues, the drops. Romeo Dobbs, wow, he catches almost everything nowadays. He's great, but he also has like 8 catches for like 20 yards, and you're like, okay, maybe he's not our guy right now. Dontavian Wicks, I feel like has been the off-season darling every year. He's almost like the Bryan Edwards hype of like 5 years ago, where every year everyone was like, oh, this is Bryan Edwards.
That was a great poll.
So they got like these guys. You're like, I wouldn't be surprised if any of those 4 guys are able to take the jump, because we've seen flashes from all of them, but it's just like very inconsistent flashes where, you look at some of these premier teams and you're like, they have their guy, regardless of how the rest of the lineup goes. You can kind of put your faith in them. You look at like to the Lions, right? Jameson Williams, Tim Patrick, Khalif Raymond can all suck, and that's okay, because you got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who you can just force feed the ball, and he'll get 10 catches, 120 yards, and like a touchdown in that mix. And you're like, okay, we're okay in the passing game. Packers, it's like, okay, we're game planning for Jaden Reed to be good this game, except he's going to suck this game, and Dontavian Wicks is going to go 6 catches for 80 yards, and you're like, well, that's kind of just makes it tricky for our play calling, later in the game. And so you're hoping Matthew Golden is able to kind of, especially the fact that he used first round capital on him, you're hoping that he can establish himself as the wide receiver 1 on this team, and at least make teams scheme for him. But then also I have on the low end them winning 7 games, which is quite a drop off, I think, from what they had, with 11 wins last season. And I think a big part of that is just, I guess, question marks about the pass attack, plus losing both Eric Stokes and Jair Alexander last season, or during the course of the offseason. Obviously, Alexander hasn't played as much as I think Packers fans wanted him to, so it's not the biggest blow. But then you're going into this season with Keyshawn Nixon and then Carrington Valentine, who like I'm not too familiar with. I know Nate Hobbs at the nickel slot is a solid guy, but like your nickel corner cannot be your best corner, all top to bottom. So you're hoping one of those 2 guys can really be a standout, because I know Nixon is like, he's an NFL veteran at this point. He's 7 years in. And then Valentine was drafted a little bit ago, but he was like a 2023 7th round pick. He's managed to stick around. So it's like, he's good enough, but like, can he replace, or can he manage to hold down what the superstars they had literally a year ago to going into this year?
I agree. I think their secondary is a big weakness right now, despite having Xavier McKinney. Mm-hmm. I think that was a huge gap for them last season, as well as Josh Jacobs. And then even Nate Hobbs, he's having a lot of issues in training camp right now. Like he just took out, I think, Marshawn Lloyd for going low on him. Like Matt LaFleur, was not happy with him. And then Tucker Kraft has been going after Matt LaFleur too. So it's been pretty crazy in this training camp, what's going on with the team. I'm so optimistic on Jaden Reed. Mm-hmm. I know I have been. Maybe it's because I'm holding out hope for my draft take on him, hoping the Bears would land him. But I don't think he's been used in the right capacity. And I think to start off the season, now that you don't have Christian Watson, and then you have some of these other guys like slowly returning back, like I think he's a guy that can instantly like take up that role, like while Matthew Golden is getting his feet under him. And I know they got Xavier Williams too. I'm not really seeing him as like a wide receiver, like as his only role. He's kind of like a Swiss Army, like do it everything kind of guy that I see him fulfilling in this role. Josh Jacobs is just phenomenal. And like if I were them, I would continue like leaning on him because Jordan Love, I think who is it? I think a former Jets GM had ranked him number 1 as like the best NFC QB. And I'm like, what are you smoking, man? Like he has games where he looks like it, especially towards the end of the 2023 season. But then like he'll have games where he's just like overthrowing guys, like slightly off target. Like think of the San Fran game, think of the Eagles game in the playoffs last year. Like, and you pile up this money for Aaron Banks. Like it's a strategy that seems really, really weird, but somehow Green Bay always manages to make it work holistically. So a lot of unknowns. Again, not a lot of like elite talent on this team, but like they get the most out of their staff, of like their personnel because of their staff. So I think if they're going to win, it's going to be their front seven. Like I know Quay Walker's coming back, but like if that's going to be the main reason. But when I look at like top to bottom of their roster versus like everybody else in this division, I agree. It's not that strong as you'd like, especially considering the guys that have left.
Yeah, so it just feels like they're a boom or bust team, and it's like I think if they didn't have the season they did last year, I wouldn't have their potential wins up so high. Like last season, if they ended with 8 or 9 wins, I think my record prediction for them might be 7 to 9. You know, but just the fact that they are able to get 11 wins out of what they had last season gives me the confidence in saying like these guys, despite the meh prospects on some of the like the top to bottom aspects of this team, I think you have to give the coaching staff and kind of what the guys have been able to do already some credit.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about the 15-2 Lions. I also highly doubt they're going to repeat the season they've had, to be honest. And I know Lions fans are going to hate this. I think they missed their window. I know it's only been 2 years, and they brought back a lot of their personnel. But I remember telling people, like, if they don't win the Super Bowl this year, with the lineup they have going on, they're never going to win. And even though they have a lot of guys coming back and they're constantly adjusting their personnel, I think Ben Johnson leaving, Aaron Glenn leaving, then like the amount of injuries they had, like going into the season where they lost 22 people off their team, and like back-to-back playoff losses in the big moments. Like the 49ers one, that one stung because like stung less because it's their first time there. They don't know any better. But the Washington Commanders loss, that was to me, that's the equivalent of like the Chiefs getting smacked around in the Super Bowl, the way that felt, even though that was a high scoring affair. And I don't know how they're going to group themselves again with the way they do, because they lost some linemen with retirement, lost their offensive coordinator. It's really, I know John Morton is like a big film guy that like grinds his basement type of guy, and you want that out of your coaching staff. But I look at the changes and I look at their schedule, especially in the beginning of the week, the year before they even hit their bye. They start out with 2 division games, then go to Baltimore, go to Cincinnati, go to Kansas City, and host the Buccaneers. That's all in their schedule before the bye week. Then you come back, you go face Brian Flores' defense, go against their nemesis Commanders, go against the Eagles, both of those games on the road. And only then your schedule is slightly easier. That's a lot. That's a lot to deal with at the start of the season. And I would not be surprised if, like, after week 11, they're sitting at like 6-4 or like 5-5. And you're like, we're really disappointed because we expected more out of the Lions. Now, I think they could still hit 11 wins, but I'm putting their ceiling at like 9 to 12 wins. And I know that's really good. I know that's really good for like any other team, but I think for the Lions team that we come to expect like the last 2 seasons, I do think they're going to take a step down because John Borden's not been in this position before. Like Ben Johnson was a master of scheming plays like back to back to back in the right moments. He might know the right play to call people. Like Matt Nagy had the best creative plays you can imagine, but he didn't have the best script and the cadence and like the order and like situational awareness and like when to call these plays. We don't know that about John Morton until we see it, and I think you're going to see Jared Goff regress a little bit. I think you're going to see like Amon-Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs, like all regress a little bit just because they're not placed in the ideal situations that they would before the coordinator change happened.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see some regression in the offense, but I think, something to like not quite ignore is just like the pieces that they lost due to injury coming back. Because sure, you can knock like how they kind of finished off the season, but they were missing their top 2 pass rushers going into like week 6 because Marcus Davenport, he was on IR at week 3, and then you have Aiden Hutchinson who was out in like week 5 or 6 of the season. And
I think like, Aiden Hutchinson was still like their leading pass rusher in sacks at the end of the season.
Yeah, well, because like Aiden Hutchinson, you've arguably, I think, healthy Aiden Hutchinson last season is on the pace to potentially win Defensive Player of the Year. And it's like, you're basically getting that back to like starting from 0, going into this season. And so like, I have them at a higher like win rate. I have them going up potentially 12 to 14 win season this year. And it's like, you mentioned like the loss of like coordinators, but like, I look at the Eagles as well, and literally the Eagles every offseason, it feels like they lose their entire coaching staff except for their head coach. And it's like, obviously personnel is a big part of that too. And I think Lions got really strong personnel top to bottom. Obviously, like Frank Ragnow was gone, but, you have faith in Christian Mahongany, and then you draft Tate Ratledge, who I'm a fan of. Penei Sewell, I think, is the best tackle in the league right now. Maybe outside of like Trent Williams, but he's like, in terms of who I'd want to build a franchise O-line out with, Penei Sewell is probably the guy. Taylor Decker's solid. I'm a huge fan of Graham Glasgow. Obviously, you still got Sam Laporta, and him just having more years is good. They traded up to get Isaac Tesla in the 3rd round, and so like you got another offensive piece there. David Montgomery's going to be 100%. You're expecting going into this season where he had some. Wasn't it this last season that David Montgomery had some games where he missed, or was that the year before?
Yeah, he missed some games.
He missed like 3 games.
You've had games where like Jahmyr Gibbs is going off. So
yeah, and so it's like you get the 2-headed monster, hopefully, for the whole season. Yeah, and so and I've always been a huge fan of Jared Goff ever since he's been in Detroit. He was good in LA for a little bit, but like I don't know. He makes some dumb mistakes, but also he's like a big part of the reason why the pass attack was as successful as it was. He's a good enough quarterback. I think he's one of the best NFC quarterbacks in the division. But yeah, so I have them at a higher percentage. Yeah.
Your point about the defense is probably your strongest point. They've lost 22 players going to the game against the Commanders, and that's almost a complete starting lineup on your team, if not a starting lineup. So it's like both sides of the ball. That's insane. But I think because they lost those players, Aiden's going to take some time. Ali McNeil, who you were counting on, is the last guy standing. Like, he's coming back. Josh Pascal. Like, all these guys are coming back from injuries, like significant injuries, where it's like they need time to ramp up, man. Especially with where their schedule is like starting off. It's not ideal. But if Aiden, DJ Reader, McNeil, Davenport are like 80% of themselves, they're going to be a strong group. I think the one thing I'd be worried about is Jack Campbell's like open field tackling, because that's been an issue for him in camp so far. But like, you still got Brian Branch. DJ Reed was such a great get to get in free agency. And it feels like I'm being super negative on them and saying they're still going to have like a window between 10 to 12 wins because their talent is just insane. But I can't ignore the loss of the coordinators. I think it's gonna be a lot bigger than what you think. I think the nucleus and the culture of the team is gonna still stick the same because Dan Campbell's the man. But I think especially in these high leverage situations at the beginning of the year, I wouldn't be surprised if they're a 500 team, even though we know they're better than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not much to say. Like, do you think there's still like a top 2 team in the conference, even with all these changes?
Yeah, like, I mean, I look at the NFC and it's like, obviously I feel like just going into this season, Eagles are probably my power ranking number 1 team in the NFC. But then I look after that, and then it's like, so the Lions I think are still amongst the better teams. Rams might be in that mix. Bounce back 49ers in that mix. And then it's like the Commanders, I guess, are like maybe like the Bucks, but like I don't know if I put the Commanders and the Bucks quite. I mean, Commanders, sure, I'll give them that edge. Bucks, maybe not, especially just losing Liam Cohen. Seahawks, I don't think will be as strong this year. 49ers, again, you're expecting the bounce back within, people being healthy. So it's like, I don't think it's out of the realm a possibility that they are the number 2 team in the NFC again. Just looking at, I feel like the level of eliteness in the NFC is like, doesn't feel quite as competitive as in years past. And
we've been saying this about it compared to the AFC too. So it's like, I think it's common perception that the NFC is like weaker, quote unquote. But I think the Lions, Vikings, like Eagles have top to bottom one of the best rosters in that conference. And the Commanders are getting there. And then you got the Rams, right? But despite me putting them at 10 to 12 wins, I still feel like they can hit a top 3 seed. Like, I think a lot of it is going to be the division is going to balance itself a lot more. Where like suddenly you might split with the Vikings, you might split with the Packers, you might split with the Bears, and that's 3 losses right there when you had only 2 losses all season, and that's not accounting for like all the elite teams you're going to face on your schedule in the regular season. So. I'd be very curious to see how this team responds, especially after the injuries and how the season ended for them. It should be. They're still going to be a fun team to watch, despite my pessimism about the team coming down from 15 wins.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little bit of like, I do not want to see them succeed any longer. But we'll see. Minnesota. Kind of a surprise team last season. I don't think anybody saw them definitely hitting 14 wins, but I don't think anybody's seen them like competing at the level they did last season. If you told me like a Sam Darnold led team was going to be fighting for the 1 seed in the NFC week 18, I would have looked at you like you're crazy. Like, did you just forget about the 49ers and the Eagles all of a sudden? But like, I mean, that's what the Vikings had done last season. And then all of a sudden, the 2 teams they lost all season, like, ended up biting them when things mattered most. They literally only lost the Rams and the Lions. And they got sent home the first week of the playoffs. So because of that, then they made the decision like, okay, this is how far Sam could probably take us. We're going to move to JJ McCarthy, which is a big risk in my opinion. But what are you kind of looking at this team, like how you're perceiving them as the season starts along?
Yeah, yeah, obviously that is the biggest question mark about this team is how well can JJ McCarthy play? And I just with how easily Sam Darnold's able to fit into the scheme, it's like I'm not quite as scared about JJ McCarthy entering this offense, because I think he can be an overall mediocre quarterback but still find a lot of success within the scheme that is like the Vikings offense has. It seems like they've kind of become like the next QB friendly team. For a while it was like, oh, the 49ers are like the most quarterback friendly team where like any quarterback can really find success with the 49ers. And I still think that a lot of quarterbacks can do that. But I think the Vikings might be another one. I mean, Kirk Cousins has had a lot of just overall success as a passer with the Vikings. Not to, like, I still think he was good. I mean, obviously we see the drop off with the Falcons, but that's also there's the injury and yada yada yada. But we have Kirk Cousins have success, and then we've had Sam Darnold see success in this team. I wouldn't say it's like unlikely that JJ McCarthy just ends up tanking the entire team, especially just with like the pieces they have on offense plus defense, where it's like Aaron Jones, when he's playing, he's good. Jordan Mason, I think, was a underrated move that they made from, the acquisition from the 49ers. You can never go wrong with Justin Jefferson as your wide receiver one for any quarterback you have in the league. Jordan Addison's a solid 2. Jalen Naylor's all right. Ty Felton, you take, I think, what round was he? He was a 3rd round, pick 102. Wide receiver from Maryland, like Stephon Diggs. But you take him, you bring in Rondell Moore and Tim Jones, so it's like you got plenty of depth in the receiver room. I'm a fan of T.J. Hawkinson. You draft Donovan Jackson round 1, and then you bring in Ryan Kelly and Will Fries, and so it's like you've built a nice, safe pocket for JJ McCarthy to settle in. Like, for the Vikings not to be successful this year, JJ McCarthy has to be like Josh Rosen levels of bad. Like, honestly, like you have to be so bad that the Vikings are taking quarterback like top 5 next season. And I'm like, that's how bad you have to be. I see them being overall a successful team. And so I have them, their win range being at lowest like 9 wins, which is quite the jump, below what they had last season. But, if he's able to somewhat replicate what Sam Darnold, of all people, was doing last season, like up to a 13-win season, isn't out of the realm of possibility. I think I looked at their schedule too, and it's like they got decently competitive games, but also, I mean, they have like, it's a tough schedule, but it's like it's either, I don't know. Again, 9 to 13, I feel like it's quite the range for a win-loss for a team, but similar to the Vikings, or not to the Vikings, to the Packers, like more or less with this team that they had, they had the record that they did, so I can't really knock them too far down in my opinion. But at the same time, quarterback questions is always a scary thing.
So do you think they're going to finish objectively better than the Packers?
I think they can, yeah.
Okay. Because it's kind of like a hard debate, right? It's like new quarterback, large amount of teams stays the same, versus a team that finished worse than them, still bringing back the same team.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a hard line. So I was just curious to see what your thoughts are.
Uh-huh.
I know this is going to sound a little bit hypocritical because the Bears have the same situation right now with what they did in free agency, but they did change like 3 of their guys in the interior portion of the line. And the reason why I'm viewing it as a positive for the Bears is because their middle 3 were that bad. And I was a fan of Tevin Jenkins. Their middle 3 were that atrocious. So like anything the Bears do to even slightly address it, and the fact that you address it with Joe Tooney, like as one of the guys, has me feeling confident about that group. For the Vikings, I'm not so sure because you lose Dalton Reisner, Cam Robinson, Quessenberry, all three of those guys. And then you place them in Fries, Kelly, and Donovan Jackson. I think Jackson being a risk and starting him right away, that's something. Fries and Kelly, I don't know. Like, when I think of Will Fries, I just think about the other lineman named French. And I just see their two jersey numbers put together in this French fries. That's all I think about. I haven't actually watched him to see how good he is. But, like, you're replacing a bunch of unknowns on the O-line that wasn't really a problem last season. Until, like, you face the Rams and the Lions, where they had defensive lines to beat you, even though the Lions was depleted by the time they faced them in Week 18. So that could be the one issue I could see happen to this team because that's where they had the most amount of change. But like from a skills position perspective, you're absolutely right. They're one of the best in the league. Then you look at the changes they made on the defensive line. Like on top of a really good Brian Flores defense that only allows like 4 players to rush, and he blitzed a lot. Now he doesn't have to blitz a lot because he got Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Grenard, key free agent addition last year. And then Harrison Phillips and manning the middle. That is a deadly, deadly D-line right there. Now you don't have to blitz as much. You can disguise everything. And I think it was, who was it? Josh Metellus saying you're kind of like mastering the scheme at this point. Year 3 of the Brian Flores scheme. Like even though you have new guys like Jeff Okudah, Isaiah Rodgers, like the 2 D linemen I mentioned. Like you're bringing Dallas Turner like year 2. Like that defense is still nasty. So I think they have a lot of things going for them. I'm slightly lower. I think they're going to hit the 8-11 win season just because it's going to be a slow start for JJ McCarthy. He's going to see a lot of different things. You face 3 AFC North teams, but then like after the bye week 7 through like 12 is rough, man. That's a rough stretch for them to be facing. So like they could also be 5-5 at best, but like I probably see them sub 500 when you're looking after week 12 and like once the water's clear.
Yeah.
And that could be, and I think they can turn it around. Obviously, that's why I have them at 8-11 wins. But I don't think you're gonna see them like start out the gate as hot as they are, like and be like 8-3 or like 8-2, like going into like week 12.
Yeah. I will add though, in terms of your like offensive line concerns, like David Quessenberry did not start a game last season, and so it's like you lose a backup offensive tackle there. I think Will Fries versus Dalton Reisner. I think Reisner is like barely an average guard, whereas Will Fries is, I feel like, an above average player there. I feel like the biggest question mark you have here is Ryan Kelly being the new starting center, if anything, over like the rest of the O-line changes, just as like, I know you talked about the O-line, but like
the Quessenberry part, you could tell I didn't watch the Vikings that far. So
like I can't like yeah, so I'm like, I mean you can't say, I don't know, just like a tackle that didn't start a single game isn't, I mean, he's a solid backup, but
bad downgrade. If you move on from him, downgrade right now.
You know, so I mean, like, yeah, I get your concerns with the obviously their O-line was really good last season, but like, I mean, Christian Darrisaw is kind of like the guy, and so it's like you have him.
He was hurt last year, right?
Yeah, I think so. So I mean,
that's how they got Cam Robinson.
Yeah, and so I mean, you get Darrisaw, who you're expecting to be a better than Cam Robinson was at your left tackle. Donovan Jackson still was a first-round pick, so you're expecting good things from him. Pretty sure there was a different O-lineman that was drafted within the division that was also Jordan Morgan. No, but yeah, I was like Jordan Morgan. Because he was backup, but then I found out that he got hurt last season and missed like all of last year, even though he was a first-round pick for the Packers. So hopefully Jordan Morgan actually can play healthy. But going back to the Vikings, yeah, like I have we have the big amount of losses they had over the course of the offseason here, but then like I looked at it and I'm like, there's a couple starters, obviously like Bradbury, who I think I failed to include here, but then you have like Reisner, who they replaced, but then like there's a couple alleged big names here. Like, I mean, you look at Shaq Griffin and Stephon Gilmore, but like Gilmore is significantly past his prime in my mind at this stage. He's still a free agent. It's been 4 years since he's even been voted to the Pro Bowl of anything. And so it's like, yeah, I think more or less
on the other side of 30, man. Like, I don't think you're getting better play after.
Yeah, because honestly, I forgot Stephon Gilmore was even on the team last season. And then I went and looked at his stats, and then I saw that literally, like, it was not even in the 20s, like the 20-year decade or whatever, that he's, like, been considered a prime elite cornerback, you know, which is unfortunate. But, like, so that Shaq Griffin is kind of, like, he was, I think, listed as a backup last season. Cam Bynum, I'd say, would be the biggest. Him and Bradbury were probably the two biggest losses. So you lose one of your safeties, and then you lose a center. And those would probably be the biggest concerns. Oh, I flipped.
I don't know why that happens to you.
I don't know. But anyway, so overall, it really, like, with a lot of teams with younger quarterbacks, it does come down to how does the quarterback mesh with the rest of the team, especially just McCarthy being injured last season. We don't get to see him at all. I will say, though, I'm not going into last season's draft, I wasn't the hugest fan of JJ McCarthy. I think of all the quarterbacks from last year's class and that were taken in the first round, I feel like he had the objectively smallest upside of the quarterbacks that were there. But like my one overall vote of confidence towards him was he doesn't crumble under like the big lights. Like I feel like he won the championship game for, you know, like all things considered. And so it's like, if he is unsuccessful, it won't be because he gets nervous playing at the NFL level. It's just because he sucks. So that's, I guess, for the Vikings, that's Vikings fans. That's kind of your take on my take on JJ McCarthy for you.
I think the big thing, and this goes for any college quarterback transitioning to the NFL. I think Kevin O'Connell actually said this last Saturday, but like in college, you have wider hashes. So you're throwing to open voids or open zones to your targets versus like in the NFL, the reason why play action is so key and like sucking the linebackers in is because if you're able to throw it behind them and manipulate the defenders to move where you want it to, then you can get the throws you want down the middle where a lot of quarterbacks succeed. So it's about JJ McCarthy being able to do that where he can manipulate defenders like off script when the script is nullified. And I think that will be the biggest jump and biggest tell if he's able to do that or not. You've seen clips where like you see Jalen Naylor and like Jordan Addison on a post route or like catching balls in training camp, but you're not seeing Jordan Addison on the top corner like in the league or like on the team like on Sundays, and you won't really know if like JJ McCarthy can read that post snap and stuff like that. He's doing that in practice, and I think going against a Brian Flores defense every single day in training camp is going to get the best out of you. But to your point, JJ McCarthy sucks. Like the QB2 job is not really going that well for the Vikings. Like Sam Howell's a beat late on everything. Like they've had quite a transition there. Like I don't know who's their Q3, like Brett Rippon maybe because he's the most experienced guy, but like Max Brausner, he's not been great. Like the quarterbacks behind JJ are not great, and it goes back to you lose Daniel Jones, you lose Sam Darnold most importantly in the same offseason. Like they're taking a big risk with this quarterback change. I think it's not getting talked about enough because we're like, oh yeah, the rest of the team is great. The rest of the team is great. So I think it's a big question mark. How fast can JJ McCarthy adjust to the NFL? Yeah. Based on the moves they made in the offseason, like they're thinking he's the next Patrick Mahomes because you don't let go of a Sam Darnold or like a Daniel Jones. We have like sure things where you know what they are, and you know you can get better than backup play from both of them. Like if you think like JJ McCarthy sucks. But then again, this GM has had quite a few misses in the draft, and they only had 5 picks to work with in the NFL draft. So it's it's like, oh, should we try to sign Sam Darnold to a mega deal? Or should we just start JJ because we drafted him and we only have 5 picks and we got to think about how we're allocating the cash going forward? It's this season's kind of make or break for the Vikings considering how their season ended up. And I think it's unfair because Vikings fans were not expecting this at the start of last season, but this is kind of the state where their team is at now.
Yeah, I mean, like it makes sense to not have Sam Darnold here for this season because, like, ultimately, if you re-sign Sam Darnold, like you're signing him to a multi-year starting quarterback contract, which basically is saying we are done with JJ McCarthy. Like that's the only way you keep Sam Darnold around.
But he won 14 games for you last season, right?
I know.
I think
so I'm just
in
saying,
that
like,
situation, it's a tough dilemma.
So I'm like, are you just? But I mean, at that point, you're just like, okay, we are done with JJ McCarthy, and then you're moving on from JJ McCarthy, and that's kind of the statement. Is like, did the Vikings want JJ McCarthy to be their guy, yay or nay? Based off what they showed here, JJ McCarthy is in fact the guy that they like and they want, and that's why you move on from Sam Darnold. And then with Daniel Jones, I feel like, I mean, you look at Daniel Jones, and I'd argue that, and maybe in his head at the time, competing against Anthony Richardson for the Colts job was the easiest road to be a starter. I mean, apparently Anthony Richardson has had a great camp so far. He's been coming in earlier or whatever, and
that's my boy.
He's been throwing the ball good, I guess. So, like maybe it's not as easy of a road for Daniel Jones, which, I mean, if Anthony Richardson can find success, honestly, I'm happy for him. But yeah, I mean, like it's a tricky situation for the Vikings here, just because it's kind of that like whole lost fallacy, kind of like with the Trey Lance versus Brock Purdy. It's like, obviously you want Trey Lance to be successful, but then you find Brock Purdy, and it's like there's an alternate universe that, let's say, Trey Lance actually is significantly better than Brock Purdy for whatever reason, and he was the key to them winning the Super Bowl. And it's like, well, that's why you spent those draft picks trading up to get Trey Lance, is your hopes for that. But then it's like, it's a real bummer to just to cut your losses and be like, well, I mean, you found Brock Purdy, which is awesome, but like, it's that give or take. And if Trey Lance, they believe, could take them to the Super Bowl and win them the Super Bowl, then it's like, well, do we move on from Brock Purdy? Do we trade Brock Purdy away? And it's kind of a similar situation with the Vikings of like, Sam Darnold did great things for us, but are we willing to toss JJ McCarthy to the side yet? And obviously the Vikings made their choice by saying, we want to stick with JJ McCarthy. We think he is our guy. We think he can elevate this team to a spot that maybe Sam Darnold can't take us. Plus, you're on a cheaper contract with JJ McCarthy here versus what you'd be paying Sam Darnold. And so you have that much extra cap space to invest in players like potentially, Jonathan Allen or Javon Hargrave, where hypothetically you keep Sam Darnold and you don't get one of those two guys. And,
right.
And you're hoping that
still lose the amount of players you do.
And so it just kind of comes down to how they want to treat the cap space.
But that begs the question: are they going to regret this decision if JJ sucks? Right?
Yeah, it'll be a scary thing for Vikings fans.
Yeah, it's a big risk. It's a big risk what they're doing. But
yeah.
I think, if anything, JJ came from a good situation in Michigan, where he had a lot of talented players around him. He has a lot of talented players around him in the NFL. He has a great situation with the head coach, like quarterback whisperer. I think I have confidence he can be a quality starter. My brother definitely does because he invested in him in Dynasty. But we shall see. Now that we got through that, who do you think wins the division this year?
I'm going to just have to give it to the Lions. Everybody improved, but like the Lions didn't get worse, in my opinion, by any specific means. And my record prediction for them already has them at going to win the division, so I'm going to keep them at the Lions.
I'm going to have the Bears win the division. They're going to have 8 wins, and then everybody else is going to have 7. So
that'd actually be so crazy.
I mean, would it? I could see them all split against each other. Not gonna lie.
If the Bears win the division with 8 wins, that would be insane. Any team winning the division with only 8 wins would be the craziest thing I think I see with the NFC North this year.
have you seen the Seattle Seahawks a few years ago? That's all I gotta say. I think they went like 7-8-1 one year, and then they ended up getting a 4th seed. That was kind of the start of like, why do division winners with worse records than the wild card seed? Like it's like the Rams and the Vikings argument. Like, speaking of the Vikings, like that was crazy. The fact they lost that game, jumped all the way to the 5th seed, like that's going to be a big argument. But I'm not saying it's impossible, because it very much could be possible.
Yeah, low-key from a fan perspective, though, honestly, that's kind of like, it's kind of hype knowing that like one loss between like you and your division rival jumps you from 1 seed to like number 5. Like, in terms of NFL storylines, I think that's really, really fun. Obviously, when it happens to my team, it's the worst thing ever, and the rules need to be changed. But like,
Yeah, I don't know how you fix it, because then you're like, what's the point of winning your division yet? Like, because it's like, how do you rate like how tough each division is? Like, is it strength of schedule outside of division games? It's because like looking at the NFC North, like the Bears should be in the playoffs because they lost to all their division rivals, even though they were 5-12. So really 5-12 was 8-9. So it's like, it's really hard to decipher how they're going to make it work. I think the most easiest way is just do it by record. Like, people record just get seeded that way, so it should be fun.
Who do you have winning the division? I mean, I guess you said the Bears. Never mind.
Yeah, of course. But realistically, I think it's the Lions to lose. I'm gonna have the Lions and the Vikings neck and neck again this year. But I think the Lions have a lot more consistency they're bringing to the table, despite losing both their coordinators. Whereas for the Vikings, they have a lot to prove with JJ McCarthy. And same thing with the Packers, especially with their secondary being lost, like 2 main cornerbacks, and Jordan Love hasn't put things together in the clutch moments yet. I could see him continuing to struggle in the division games, and I think those are going to be the tie breaks.
Yeah, I think it'll be. Overall, like I said from the very beginning, like the worst wins for the 4th place team I have is 7. Like, 7-win team as the worst team potentially, I think, is a competitive division. Can't really hate on whatever's going on there.
I have to applaud you for insinuating that worst team was the Packers, though, because
you're welcome.
I automatically made an assumption. So thank you very much, you homer.
Yeah, I'm cool like that sometimes.
Just sometimes,
Yeah, I dabble.
Alrighty. Thank you guys so much for watching. We got one more division to go. Very exciting. AFC North, a lot of drama with the Steelers and the Bengals lately in the media. That should be fun. Like, actually look at their teams and see like what they're actually going to do on the field. Will the Baltimore Ravens shoot themselves in the foot again in the playoffs? Find out next week. But until then, follow us on our Amana Mission page on Instagram and YouTube. See the handle down below. Till then, see you guys next week.
Yeah. Peace.